Now this video is going to be called A Little Knowledge is a Dangerous Thing, and on my YouTube channel, which is Gary IDS, which you can see up here, the very first video that I ever did, and you'll find it under the section here, Gann Made Easy, Getting Started. And the first one here is W.D.Gann Free Lesson 1, and I did it 5 years ago. And it was about the using the first rule that I found worked from a Gann point of view, which is his 50% rule. Now there was lots of other rules that I tried to get to work before that, such as things retracing 50%, which is a completely different thing, dividing the range into 8s and 3rds, Gann cycles, you name it. I probably tried it. But the first one that I really thought worked was the Gann 50% rule. But if you actually watch that video, at the beginning of it, I go and say that it doesn't always work at 50%, and it's knowing when it's going to work and when it's not going to work that's the important thing, not just having one simple rule that people expect to work every time. It's far more complicated than that. And so usually I reply with an email based on what I'm about to show you. So instead of sending out an email in the future, I'm going to send out this video. So there's a little riddle in there which you might be able to work out, you might not be able to work out. So anyway, if you watch the 50% rule here, then it'll probably make a bit more sense. But back in August of 2013, there's an acquaintance from Holland, and he sent me the following email. So he said, I recently found some videos on YouTube which made me again aware of something interesting, namely the 50% rule and the magic word if. Now that's actually referring to me, because I went over to see him at his offices in Holland, and I was talking about the 50% rule, and he's obviously found those videos that I've just mentioned, and I always use the word if. In other words, I never say something will happen, I always say if it happens. Now there's a reason for that. The reason is a bit like this. Let's say there's 10,000 horses in a horse race, and you go and say, I bet you this one wins, and I say I bet you it doesn't. Okay, who's got the best chance of being right? Well, I have, because you've got one horse, I've got 10,000. So it's the reason bookies make money. The reason bookies make money is because even though you might have the favourite horse, they've got all the other horses, and that's what gives them the advantage. And what I say is basically if it gets there. I don't say it will get to a certain level. Okay, so if it gets there, that's when I'm going to make the trade. So it's a bit like going back to the horse race analogy again. Why not just wait until the horse is about to cross the line before making the bet? And that's really what I'm doing. I'm saying you can have 10,000 horses in the race. I'll wait until it gets to my level, which is the finishing line for the horse, and whichever one is about to cross the finishing line, that's the one I'm going to bet on. But what I don't say is that horse will reach the finishing line. I'm saying if it reaches the line. So I hope that made sense. But anyway, basically, he was asking me about the AEX because he's Dutch, and he said he was pointing out the fact that it was about to reach 50% from the major low at 256.6, and he said that the level was 384.54. So great rule. So basically, if you follow that rule in that first video I did on YouTube, then that would be a place to actually make the trade. But this is what the reply was that I gave. So forget about the age. Yes, I'm watching the level as well, but maybe 380 could be important. So maybe 380 could be important, but I do prefer 385.5. Why might 35.29411% work from the June 2012 low? Okay, and then I sent this chart of what it looked like at the time, and you can see some numbers on here: 15%, 21.052631%, 27.7777%, and I said that I was expecting it to work at 35.29411%. Okay, now these are numbers that I don't normally use, but these numbers here gave me the clue that this one was going to work here, which you can see on the chart here. It hadn't quite reached when I did the email. Now the 50% level was a bit higher. I I think it was 380, so it was a bit higher than that actual level. Okay. Now what I also sent was this other chart, and on there I showed the 50% level. But it says here, well, what I said was, but with my angles on, it looks like 385ish. Now these were the angles that I put on the chart. An 11 by 3. Can't quite make that out. That's a 22 by 7. That's an 11 by 4, and I was watching for the future a 22 by 9, and you can see an 11 by 5 on after that. So those were the angles that I had on the chart, and I said I was watching for it to get to this angle. The great thing about angles is it tells you the time to do something and also the price to do something. So for instance, if it gets to the angle here, okay, then it won't get to the level, but it will give you the right time and the right price. If it gets to here, then you get a different price, but you'll get the right time. So that's how I do timings. That's how I find the right time to do something. It's when it actually hits the angle. So what we're going to do now is actually have a look at actually what happened. I'll just see if I've got anything else on there. No, that's okay. That was the last thing. So if you can bear in mind what that chart looked like, and that's when I actually physically did the chart. I'm sure if the Dutch client sees this video, I'm sure he'll put in the comments thing whether I did say this or didn't say that. Okay, so let's look at the charts and see what happens into the future. Now this is a weekly chart, and you can see that I've drawn the angles down from the major high that's up here, and on that email I showed you that had the following angles: 11 by 3 with a correct master time factor, which of course is hidden; 11 by 4 with the next one is an 11 by 5, and the next one is 11 by 6. And I think they're basically the ones that I had on that email. And I also had the following on. Halfway between that one and that one is 22 by 7. And you can see that it's exactly where the market went and stopped. And then for the future, those were basically hindsight when I did the email. Halfway between this one and this one is going to be a 22 by 9. So that was on the chart, and so was the minus 11 by 5, for example. And I could also have on an 11 by 11. Is that right? Yes. So 11 by 11, oh sorry, 22 by 11 is an 11 by 6 plus an 11 by 5 is a 22 by 11. So you can see that those is the logic that works out into the future, but this has got nothing whatsoever to do with what Gans said. He never came up with any of these strange numbers. Okay, but you can see that this particular item seems to be working in this way, so it's going to give me certain levels into the future. And so that email basically said, was I watching 50% from the major low that was made in 2011? Okay, so it was quite close at the time, and I said that I was actually watching a different level. So I've gone to a daily chart, and this is what those two charts I sent in the email basically look like. I've combined them, so I've got the 50% level from the major 2011 low, and then from this low here in May I've got those percentages that in that email, and you can see that the market stopped here at 15, it stopped here at 21.052631, and it stopped here exactly at 27.777. That's hindsight. So I've only seen those numbers because that's where the market stopped, and then I discovered from those numbers working what the next one might be. So that's your clue. Let's see if you can work it out, and that's how I came up with the number 35.294411. And as I already said, that's got nothing whatsoever to do with Gann. So you can see that I've taken his rules, I believe, way past what Gann was saying, and also I've got these really strange angles on. But before we go on with that, let me just show you what Gann told you to do in his books and courses, drawing angles from the high on the AEX, and just show you that it doesn't work. So, first of all, I didn't draw my angles from there. I actually drew it from the secondary high, which was there, but Gann would have drawn his angles from there. So, let's do it. Let's see what happens. So his most important angle, he said, was a 1 by 1. And if you follow what Gann said, then this would be an angle that goes down at the rate of 1 point every week. And in fact, it looks quite good. You can see that it actually gave you the top that was made here. The next angle he would have drawn below that one would have been a 2 by 1. And your brain will see that it works here. But your brain can be very misleading. It's basically ignored all the times, hasn't worked. So you know, it did work, seemed to work there, but it didn't work here. Yeah, so your brain is attracted to where it sees it work, but ignores when it doesn't work. So you can see it work here, so your brain sees it work, but it doesn't see it not work here. And the next angle above a 1 by 1 is a 1 by 2. Now that one actually works, and again Gann wouldn't cut any of his angles, so he would keep all these angles on. So like I said, I've taken his work far past. Now that actually works quite well, but normally you'd find it just doesn't work at all. But that's it. Those are all the angles that you'd have on. He also mentioned, for instance, a 2 by 3, but you can see that it didn't work, and the next one for the future would be a 1 by 4. And that's basically what his chart would look like. But if you compare it with what I'm doing, it's completely and utterly different. And just by drawing things from the wrong place can make a massive difference to all this working. So that's what Gann would have done. So as you can see, these have nothing to do with what Gann said. It's based on Gann's rules, but it isn't quite what he said. So let's see what happens. So basically in the email said I was watching the 22 by 9 and the 50%, but of course I don't know how the price is going to get to it. If this went up very quickly now, it would go through 50% by quite a lot to get to the angle. If it goes sideways for a couple of weeks, then it could get to 50% and the angle. If it again, it all depends on how it gets there, so whether there's an actual trade to actually be made. So 35.2941, let's see what happened. The market went up and it reached the level. Now if you don't know this, then you'd still be waiting for, you'd still be waiting for the 50% level. Now what you're going to say is that it hasn't got to an angle, but it actually has. That's a 22 by 9, that's an 11 by 4. Add the 2 up, no it's not a major angle, but you add the 2 up, you get 33 in 13, and if you do a minus 33 in 13, you can see that it isn't halfway between the two, and what makes all this so incredibly amazing. And what happens? The market goes down. So I predicted that level from what happened in the past. It's not as simple as just knowing a simple rule. Yeah, it's knowledge that makes you money, not a computer program. Yeah, it's knowledge. However, I couldn't do this without my program. And you can see that it's basically where the top was made. Let's see what it does when it gets to that next angle. Now I'm not interested the second time it gets this angle, because now it's a trend line. Anybody from that major high would draw a line through there and would see it's a trend line. As I keep saying in all the videos, don't trade trend lines. So the market just goes straight through, and you can see the way it gaps through. They very rarely work trend lines. You can always find examples where it has worked, but basically don't trade them. So let's see what happens when it gets to 50%. So it goes shooting up, everything looks fantastic. It reaches the 22 by 9, which I put on the chart before the market ever got there, and the market comes down. I'll just cut, leave on. So as you can see, pretty amazing. So that means I've got some other angles for the future. So if we scroll up, And this is the great thing about angles, they're not fitted in after the event, you can do them before the market ever gets there. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, as this one was hard because it's a bit unusual. Now, as you can see, next angle there is 11/5. The market did carry on going down from that level, and then it starts to go up. Break through 50%, and waiting for the next angle, and we get to the next angle. Let's see what happens. The market goes down, goes back up to it again, hits it a few times, which is why making money is so difficult. If you were watching intraday prices there and trying to trade this, you'd never stay in the trade because that's about 2 weeks and you would panic out. But the rules keep you in, our stop loss rules keep you in, and as you can see, the market tops out exactly at that level. Now remember that I did the original email reply when the market was here, so that's a good 3 or 4 months into the future. Okay, you couldn't make this stuff up. Okay, then we go back up and we go through. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to include my next focus signal that said that I thought the market was going to work at a certain strange number, and it's actually based on the working out what happened in the past from the major low that happened in 2009. But if you did what Gans said, you'd basically be using twice 50, which is 100. But the number I used, as you'll see in a minute, is 108.33, I think, from memory. But I'll insert the video here. Now let's go with the training video of the 21st of the 10th, 2013, and as discussed in there, I'm looking for a short at this level here. It might get as high as the 108.33%, but it might only get this high, which is a little bit lower. So this is the area. Unfortunately, I don't particularly have an angle at that same level, so it'll be difficult to get the exact turning point. Now, I said a few things in that focus signal when the chart looked like this. I said I was watching 108.33%, and that is actually drawn from the major low in 2009. But what I went and said was I didn't have an angle at the same place, because you can see, I've already shown you this 11/5 work in the future, but you can see it's too low. It can't get to the angle and the level at the same level, and the next angle, which is the 22/11, is too high. So at the time I couldn't really have an angle, so therefore I tend not to trade them unless I've got a level that I think might work and an angle. But how things get to a certain level is a bit unusual. So as I've already shown you, it got to 11/5 and that happened to be the top of the market. Okay, so that's actually, you can see now that 11/5 is moving down. So let's see what happens. The market has an incredibly quick movement upwards, breaks through that angle. Okay, and we're approaching 108.33% from that major low. Okay, now we haven't reached the angle. Now levels can get broken, so angles are usually better. So what I'm looking for is an angle and a level. So let's see what happens. The market stops, but I haven't got an angle. Now you could be tempted to trade there, and that rise probably, or could have, stopped you out. Now is the time to look for weakness. Now again, it could go straight through, but let's see what happens. It's reached my level that I put on a long time before the market got there. We've also got to the angle, which gives me the time and the price to make the trade, and this is what happened. The market again went sideways, and then we had the massive fall very quickly, and we had a big fall, and then recently we've had a rally, and today it looks like that. So without explaining it, you can probably see what I might be watching in the future. Now I'm not saying this is a trade, but it's a very minor angle, but remember we did the angle that's halfway between 11 by 4 and 22 by 9, 33 and 13. Why did the market stop here? 22 by 11, 11 by 6, add the two together, you get 33 by 17, and you can see it's where the market stopped. But if you do that too much, you can just fit anything in. So like I said, I didn't trade it, but hopefully you agree, pretty interesting. So why was I watching 108.33% from the 2009 low? So I'll give you another riddle, see if you can work this one out. So let's go to the weekly chart. Now I worked out the 108.33% from the major low that was down here based on what had worked in the past, and you can see that the first level that it stopped at here was 76.1904, the next level was 83.3, and from that I worked out the next level of 93.3. Unfortunately didn't quite touch it, and then from that I worked out 108.33, and from that I worked out a level in the future of 133.33% from that major low. So obviously you can say I was right with 108.33. Time will tell whether I'm right with 133.33. So see if you can work that one out. So two riddles there, the ones from this low and the ones from this low. Let's hope you can work it out. If you'd like more information about our services, please don't hesitate to contact me at the following address.